Hello and welcome. Welcome to this presentation. I have an expert speaker here with me. This is to discuss the family court failures and how to help our children. So hi, I'm author Grace Wroldson. I help motivated mothers who are forced to co-parent with a narcissist, maintain their sanity, save their custody cases, and enjoy their child's one and only childhood. That's hard to do when their family courts are failing protective moms in courts. And this is for any protective parent, mom or dad. Moms are usually who are in my groups and watch my videos. So welcome. How do we help our children? Where is the hope? Just first of all, know that you're not alone. If the family court has failed you, you're in a custody battle with a narcissist, a sociopath, a psychopath, you're not alone. That's where these abusers take their next level of abuse. But how do we help our cases? How do we help our children? Where's the hope? I'm a mother, survivor, author, and I'm a strategy partner with moms who are forced to co-parent with narcissists. And I have an expert and an author who has a foundation that specifically helps protective parents. And she's a psychoanalyst who's been in this for, I think, decades. So I will introduce her later. Just want to welcome everyone who's watching and let you know what the questions we have are. Like, why do things go so wrong for protective moms in family court? Where is our power? Where is a mom's power in family court? Do we have any rights? Do our children have any rights? And what about these courts and these judges and these so-called professionals and so-called experts that the other side, the narcissist, will bring in to use against us in a family court battle? And, you know, when there's a war, and it's a war, and lawyers draw hard lines on both sides and pit one party against the other, when it's like that, there are casualties, and the casualties are often the children. So we have a lot of questions, but I just want to give a disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer or court professional, and I'm sharing my survivor story and my wisdom. And this is to raise awareness, to tell the truth. And as my speaker will say, the truth can be triggering. To share knowledge, to give a warning about family court failures and possible corruption and collusion that is happening at that family court level, where we're going for help. They might not help, they might hurt our case. Point to resources that are available, give you encouragement, and offer some help and hope, because many of us survive, not without our war wounds, of course. Just know it's not a one size fits all. So much depends. Everyone asks me a question. I'm like, well, that depends. And the custody cases, they vary. They're complex. There's lots of history, details, specifics. So I talk about the solutions a lot. And when you're working in the solutions and you're making a strategy, it has to be the person who's helping you make a strategy has to know all the details. It's really hard to help people who've got skeletons in their closet. So whoever's helping you strategize really does need to know what are all the issues on the table, like what's going to be used against you. So just saying this is educational, but I'm giving a little trigger warning. We're going to just share the message and not so much of the mess that we've endured, so that you can get this education. You could pause this and read the bottom of the screen. Hi, I'm Grace. You can come to my website. I've written books about loving and leaving an alcoholic. And then my second lawyer informed me the reason I'm stuck in family court in this high conflict custody battle is because my ex is a narcissist. He had a dual degree in psychology and law, and he was a good man. He just wasn't a family law expert. And we lost a 5-day custody trial that spanned 3 years and went over 2 years to get through all the trial days. And I lost my legal rights to my child and was able to maintain 50% custody, which is unheard of. And I had 3 bad GAL reports written against me that were biased, paid off by my ex, who is a narcissist, who paid off all these professionals and hired the most vicious bulldog attorney to come after me. I've undergone 2 psychological evaluations. One I paid for myself because I knew it was going to be paid off on his side once I saw the corruption, and I survived it just barely, and had to get another lawyer, go back, try to win things back that I had lost, and then decided to start using skillful means and a combination of chip away at it strategy, which I'll explain later. So I am a survivor of narcissistic abuse. I'm a survivor of co-parenting abuse. That's what I call it. It's post-separation abuse. I'm a survivor of legal abuse over a decade. So I think 12 years. So I write and speak in a pen name. Here's my books in order, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you want to read the progression of how I had to hold on to my sanity, how I had to find resources and representation, how I had to just survive all of the tactics, tricks, and traps and manipulations, and then survive the family court. So I say, if you're ready to learn, I'm ready to teach and tell you my story. You can read that through that. They're mostly written self-help, what I had to grab onto. My special guest that I'm so grateful that she took the time to be here is a valuable resource for any protective parent, mom or dad. And this is Jill Jones Soderman. She is a psychoanalyst, psychotherapist. I mean, a lot of qualifications here. Family therapist, author, forensic expert with many years of experience. Her credentials and personal history led her to found the foundation she has, which is Foundation for Child Victims of Family Court, FCVFC. And she wrote a book that I just finished reading, Family Court Corruption, Speaking Truth to Power and the Consequences Thereof. Her website, you can find it at fcvfc.org, has a wealth of information. I've read a lot of her articles, and it has information regarding the history of the family court corruption she discovered and uncovered, and the ongoing battle to fight it. Hi, Jill, are you there? I just want to say
yes,
welcome and thank you. Thank you for being here. So I want to introduce you a little bit more to give you some credibility, because you have a lot of accolades, a lot of experience. You were trained as a psychoanalyst and you have a lot of degrees. You're training, I think you have a doctorate too, and I'll let you speak to that. You started this nonprofit and you have analytical clinical studies and things that you've been involved with, and in a special case that brought you to this work where a child actually passed away. You can talk about that more. The importance of your training is that you understand this at a very deep level and that you had to go head to head with family court. I was on the front lines of family court. I'm still on the front lines of family court. You're on the front lines of family court. You're still on the front lines. And so it takes a special strength and a motivation, and we have our motives to help children, save children. And your whole CV can be found on your website that gives all your training so that we know you're qualified and people can't question your qualifications and your experience and the history. And I'll show the mission of your foundation, which I believe in too, is also on your website. So thank you, Jill, for being here and helping raise awareness with me and tell the truth. And I just want to give you a moment to say, is there any certain qualifications? I know you went to college and have degrees and doctorates that you think is the most important when dealing with these family law cases.
I think the major issue has to do with the willingness to speak truth to power and to not defer to licensed professionals within the court who are at this point in time, after more than 60 years of the movement and engagement of the concept of parental alienation given by Richard Gardner, MD, that this is a falsehood, and that one needs to understand that the Gardner concept is an entirely false concept equal to the flat earth theory of life, and that there are excellent laws. There is a Constitution of the United States. There is due process. Family court functions around judicial discretion, and this is the soft spot of family court that allows for the degree of fraud, grift, and corruption that is innate in family courts.
Yes.
It's process.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to get right into the warning that we have on family court, because like my mentor says, this isn't a justice system. This is a legal system, and you're going to need to navigate it. And like I tell moms, this isn't a straight line to the judge and to the truth. This is a whole zigzag where it's going to go crazy. Things you never expected will come out. When a narcissist or an abuser gets into legal trouble, they will lie. They will create all kinds of manipulations. I have a list here: smear campaigns, false accusations, flying monkeys, minions, poisoning the well tactics, triangulation, and much more. I mean, I was accused of the worst, Munchausen's by proxy. But I never went to jail for it because I was never guilty of it. It's just something they said to win. And they also, most abusers, narcissists like to claim PA, parental alienation, and it's just a way to win. It's not actually happening. And someone had given that idea credit, which we'll talk about maybe later in this video, but it's actually something that's just used as a weapon. So the family court can be the abuser's next weapon. It could be the next stage of the abuse. I call it the stage. So if you're not getting abused in the home and they can't abuse you on the curb because they've been, supervised transfers or transfers in public, then they'll bring you to court and abuse you there. And that's an option, and that's typical pattern of abuse, how it cycles, and they just keep going. They just keep being themselves. Narcissists, just keep being themselves. Abusers just keep abusing. And the family courts have become a channel for hostility towards a protective mom or dad, protective dad. And there's been hate campaigns launched against protective moms who are just trying to protect children from their ex's abuse. And the family court has become a place to hide, lie, cheat, steal children, silence children, hold children as hostages. Lawyers make money, and whether you win or lose. And in family court, moms aren't realizing that this, yes, is supposedly where you would file for your rights and petition and make motions. But when you're dealing with an angry, paranoid, rejected, ego bruised narcissist, or an angry, rageful, revengeful abuser, you can expect that family court may not go as well as you had hoped, as what you assumed, as what you expected. So I offer these warnings: how to safeguard your case against PA, parental alienation claims, how to document, how to ask lawyers the right questions to see if there's someone that's just there to make over $300 an hour. Some are now $750 an hour. Some are $1,000 an hour. It's very expensive in family court. And what happens when family court and they get it wrong? So you wrote a book about family court corruption. You've been through it. You've explored it. You're exposing it. You work to save vulnerable children. And we are on the front lines seeing what they call worst outcomes, horrible outcome cases, where the abuser gets the children if you report child abuse. And CPS, Child Protective Services, are failing to do good reviews. And narcissists or abusers have a lot of money, and they can pay professionals to give them favorable reports, to point the finger and do a lot of mother blaming, as I call it. And I read your book, and there's a lot of background that we can get into. So this is your new book, and I can read the inside cover, but do you want to speak about this book? What's the important message of this book?
But the important message of the book was my coming of age. Family Court Corruption #2, which will be coming out soon, deals more with the core issues of fraud and corruption, that deals with taxpayer money under child support and Title 4D aid to dependent children coming from the federal government, our taxpayer money, to government agencies and to the state, federal funds running to the states, and understanding Title 4D. The message of the book was my dawning awareness of that the courts were not these perfect, wonderful institutions of justice and truth, but we're becoming grifts in their own capacity, that this was an organized, skilled, knowledgeable pathway to child trafficking and racketeering, a coordination of experts from judges on down, backed by the bar associations who are using the Gardner concept of probable deniability to transfer children from the hands of predators. And the predators you're facing are not simply narcissists. That would be the most banal description of the nature of the predators that one is facing in courts now. You're dealing with sadistic psychopaths, with people who are self-involved with their own goals and their own interests. But the additional problem is that the authorities that you are dealing with, the judges, the attorneys, and the experts, are variations of the predator that you're facing. So this is a developed, orchestrated industry of child trafficking and racketeering that has developed over more than 60 years. And it's a protocol of work with the cottage industry and experts associated with it that has become a factory line of processing children from farm to market. And that's as blunt as I can possibly be. The foundation is deals with legal interventions on a constitutional law basis. And we deal with a very narrow and focused pathway to understanding and focusing on these cases. The tool that is so important is public knowledge and public information, and an understanding that family court is different from other courts. There is not law, hard law, in family court as there is in criminal court. It is driven by judicial discretion, which allows for a variety of sins that operate to transfer children from protective parents into the hands of abusers. Public knowledge, understanding what one is facing, and not avoiding the terrible panic and discomfort of understanding that your lawyer is a liability and a liar most often. We have barely ever found attorneys to honestly represent their clients because of the fear of their losing their own licenses. We have a unique process in terms of dealing with highly skilled attorneys and people who do scholarly legal law, but they are licensed attorneys who we have a particular process by which we are able to work with clients and protect the integrity and the independence of our staff and the people that we work with. But it's challenging and it's difficult, but the public needs to be aware that what you think you're facing when you go into court, as did I, think that the courts are pristine and brilliant and wonderful. They are not at this point in time. So that's my major message is honesty and understanding that the projections of the predator that you're facing, that you are being blamed with, that these are charges that the predator that you're facing and seeking to protect your children from are the charges that deserve to be pinned on the person that you're facing.
Yes.
So try not to take it personally and understand exactly what you're dealing with, because at least it preserves your sanity for the moment. But this is a battle, it's work, it's understanding what and who you're dealing with, and understanding that there are good laws to protect people, and they need
Thank you.
to be instituted.
Thank you for the work you're doing. Yes, if you look up the best interest factors in your state about family court, there might be some, or it might just say best interest at the judge's discretion. And that's what we're seeing. And if your judge does not like the look of you, if you look like a protective mom that annoys judges, typically, you could just, the biases are real. The biases of the judge, the biases of the professionals who are supposed to be neutral. I want to read this inside cover of your family
Grace,
court.
let me say one thing. There's only one bias, and that is somebody getting in the way of their paycheck. The money that comes from the federal government to the states, that goes through state agencies for child support, DCF, grants to judges. One needs to take a look at the flow of cash, and this is done through our foundation, through the financial review at the back channel. But the only bias is a parent who is challenging a judge and other experts in the case, your lawyer, the forensic, the psychologist, the so-called psychologists, the state agencies that license these people. These are all paychecks that you're getting in the way of. So it only has to do with the flow of money and nothing else. So.
Right. I wish this should be about child protection and safety. That should be number one above mom's rights, dad's rights. It should be child's rights to have a safe and happy home environment. But that's not what we're seeing. At one point in my case, the judge said, if I can't figure out who the right parent is, then I'm going to send the children to foster care. And it's like, wait a minute, you're going to send a child with a happy, safe home to foster care because you're mad at how long this case goes on. And that's the thing. These abusers are high conflict cases. And if you're not the high conflict party, you get lumped in as the high conflict person, and you get punished for your case being such a battle and taking up court's time.
Grace, they're talking about another paycheck. DCF gets funds through Title IV to federal agencies to the states. These are grants. This is money. This is state taxpayer funds. It has nothing to do with interest, and the judge is deciding where the best coffers are and how many ways to drain personal finances, property, and marital assets. They're all on the table. As soon as you put in a financial statement, as you open the case, they're looking at where the resources are and how the court is going to distribute them. And that's the fact that needs to be out there. And right, nobody's thinking about that.
So that's the foundation for all this corruption. Let me just read the inside cover. It says, of your book, Family Court Corruption, child trafficking and sexual abuse has become more prominent across the country, and it is infiltrating the family court system. The most depraved among us have brought their way into power and into the control of criminal prosecution against incest. Those who are trying to protect children from their abusers are accused of parental alienation. So many afflicted victims are so overwhelmed with the horrors of their own situation that there is no energy to move beyond their own tragedy. This book sheds light on these issues and shares resources from those who are working against corruption. So from the bottom of my heart and all the moms that are listening and watching from my groups, we thank you for the work you're doing, because it is very triggering. There is no more energy after you're trying to, you're crying your own tears, holding your child with their tears, dealing with lawyers, losing all this money. Thank you for this work that you do. And I identified a lot in this book. I have a lot of underlines of you speaking the truth. And it does sound like it's judges, it's money. There's so many problems in this family court system where children are not being protected by the courts and children are being stuck and put with their abusers. I just want to say this. One mom that I listened to, she's been in this for 3 decades, and she says if there's abuse, she tells moms don't say anything about it, because it's almost automatic that the child will be sent with the abuser because you are claiming something to alienate the other parent. And I don't know that that's the way to go with those situations. And I think when I have clients whose lawyers have failed them, I have nowhere to send them. If I have clients that have children who are dealing with sexual abuse or molestation, I have nowhere to send them. And that's where I found your work. And that's why I want to have this video for moms to know, hey, you're not alone. This is happening to a lot of us. And I want to go into your foundation and your mission statement, that your foundation is a nonprofit devoted to helping protective parents and children endangered by the family court system in the United States. Your foundation will assess the legal needs of the protective parent and their children, and you'll strive to bring together experts and professionals to address the needs. And that there might be forensic analysis, analytic evaluation, strategic intervention, litigation, attorneys, and financial forensics, which I found has been one of the best ways to back off an abuser, believe it or not, is to attack, like they call it, narcissistic supply, their money, attack their money, and they'll sometimes let go of the children, to be honest, because
It's called contacting the IRS. When you have hard proof of fraud, one of the best investigations, which is for free, is to contact the IRS. And our forensic financial team does the assessment and then does the write-up to refer the case to the IRS. So that's been one of the benefits that we bring to cases. But it's a very detailed, vetted analysis of the case that happens like bees on honey, creating honey, in terms of looking at the guts of the case, and looking at how to logistically, legally, financially, strategically attack the problem and protect children in the process. And yes, the issue of, if you articulate abuse, the court will remove your child and put them in the custody of the abuser, because you're then creating a single family home, and the abuser becomes the protective parent, and the protective parent becomes the abuser. And the child is a liar, manipulated, just a cipher of the so-called protective parent, and the abuser, who is doing horrendous, violent, awful things to the child, becomes the hero or the heroine in the case, and the person who's supposedly protecting. But that's what starts the flow of money, the transfer of children from an abuser to a protective parent. But the abuser becomes the protective parent, and the protective parent becomes the abuser. And that's the basic, simple formula that the court system is now operating under the Gardner cottage industry concept of parental alienation, and a whole realm of professionals, from judges on down, who are moving this catastrophe along.
Yeah, there are hells in horror and just mind-boggling situations happening in family courts in the United States. So supposedly a free country with a justice system. And that's not what I'm seeing all the time in family court. The majority is family court failures. And that's what I've written some blogs on. They failed me. Sometimes they helped. But I try not to have black or white thinking, because sometimes the family courts get it right. Sometimes. It's very few, though. It's like you said, there's very few lawyers out there that aren't liars and just trying to make money off of fearful, afraid, abused moms. I want to say that a narcissist will falsely accuse you of what they're doing. It's called projection. So when I was accused of Munchausen's by proxy, I said, oh my God, is that what he's doing on his time, if that whole projection thing is true? And that's what was happening in my case. I want to finish your mission statement for your foundation, because I believe in it. It says the Foundation for Child Victims of Family Courts also serves as an advocate for the health and socioeconomic well-being of clients and advances the cause of child protection through research, education, publishing, and speaking in every aspect of the organizational operation. These are the following pillars of excellence that you adhere to: fairness, compassion, victory, faith, and courage. And I will say, going to family court required a lot of courage. And I had to get courage through connection, which is why I called you on my case. I needed connection to know, hey, I'm not going crazy here. Is this like totally corrupt or backwards? What is going on? And I appreciated you validating my experience that the family court is failing. It's not in looking at child safety. It's looking at who filed a motion, where is the money, how long can we drag this out? That's the lawyers. If your case drags on with motion after motion, the lawyers make money. And the corruption is unbelievable. In my case, I didn't think there was corruption. At one point, my second attorney said, oh, you can agree to their GAL because they've got to worry about their license. They wouldn't want to be biased or work for money. Well, guess what? That GAL wrote 3 negative reports against me. My ex paid the full fee. And when I went to the Bar Association of my state and reported this, they wrote back, oh, take it up with the judge. And this GAL had worked for my ex's attorney on multiple cases. And that's what we tried to show on the stand. Hey, she's paid off. She's picked by this attorney to write these false reports for her clients to win. And once I saw the GAL report, when they picked the psychologist, I was like, I am not going to be diagnosed when I've never had a history of any mental illness. I'm not going to be diagnosed by their chosen psychologist or psychiatrist. So I went and got my own evaluation to combat the one that they were going to use against me. And so the corruption was real. I experienced it. And so this book really validated my experience and the moms that I try to help in my coaching practice. And a lot of these things are traumatizing. I think they told me I'm not trained as a therapist. They said, oh, what you're experiencing is secondary trauma, because I'm hearing the worst of the worst cases, and it's from around the world. It's not just the US, but I work in the US and only with the US, but around the world, Australia and Denmark and the UK, moms are coming and saying, I'm losing my kid to the guy that's beating them or abusing them or neglecting them. How is this possible?
Or trafficking them.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing now, is what's been happening to them. So I want to highly recommend your book. I have a lot of underlines in the book because it rang really true. And my favorite part of your book is when you say children need to be heard. That's my favorite part, because they need to be heard. And you also say children need to be believed. And sometimes moms are asking me, why don't they believe my child? Why won't they hear from my child? And why don't courts or judges believe that a father could do such a thing to a boy or a little girl? And I think there's a lot of reasons that they don't think a father would do that to a kid. That's like one of their ideas. They think that the mother is making this up just to win. That's another thing. Do you have anything to say about why judges won't believe reports?
They do believe them. That's ridiculous. They do believe them. They know exactly what's going on. It's a grift. It's a pure lie. If you look at the front cover of the first page of the foundation's website, there is the notice to the Bar Association noticing their attorneys how to implement Gardner's parental alienation concept and reunification theory. It's a training. The United Nations Council on Violence Against Children has designated reunification, so-called reunification therapy, a part of the cottage industry that has been developed by Gardner as a form of torture. It is a form of torture. The judges and the attorneys and everybody associated with this grift, with this trafficking protocol, is part of a racketeering fraud. And they know exactly what they're talking about. And they don't want to hear from children, and they want to shut up evidence because they don't want to make a record of the truth of what's going on. Yes, you need some expertise at times in terms of speaking to children, but children will tell you very quickly when they're in the early stages and don't understand that they're going to be punished more if they speak up in what's going on. They also just give up hope. They also just are lost to despair in terms of nobody listening to them, nobody coming to their rescue. Or even if people do believe them and attempt to rescue them, and then they're left in the hands of their abuser. It's the most horrendous of experiences in the case. In my first case where I began, and I naively went to the court and presented the evidence, and it was so early in that court process that the children and the family were removed from the hands of the abuser, who was a very wealthy and very internationally dangerous criminal. The children were allowed to transfer to the family, the mother's family in a different state, and they were about to leave. They had their plane tickets, and within a day they were going to be transferred to the safety of an anonymity of this other home. And then the court stepped in with a fraudulent psychologist who presented a case for parental alienation and transferred the child into the hands of his abuser. So all the work that I had done as an advocate, as a volunteer, was undone by the judge, who I then wrote many articles about as a criminal and as an abuser. And then she went after me and I went after her. And it was a bit of a battle over the ages, but I did win in that case. And as a result of it, I came out of it with the foundation. But the children were transferred into the custody of the abuser. And the oldest child, after I was removed from the case and there was nothing I could do, there was also nothing I could do because the mother supported the court and felt that she could work with the court and attempt to cooperate with them. And as a result, she lost not just one child, but she then had three other children. She lost all of her children, and her oldest child committed suicide at the age of 12. When I had worked with him, it was between the ages of 6 and 7, but I was removed from the case and then was not able to have any effect or any impact. And it was years later, when he was dying, that they had contacted me when he was in the hospital and let me know of what had happened. But yes, that is the case that started the foundation. October 25th, 2005 was the date of his death, and that was the shortly after that was the beginning of the foundation. I went back to graduate school at that point and started studying different court systems across the country: New Jersey, New York, Texas, and Virginia were the cases I was studying across the country. And that was the subject of my PhD and also the subject of my forensic studies. And the forensics were really my most productive and my most helpful area of work. And I was graduated magna cum laude from that program, and that was really the most helpful area of study for me. My psychoanalytic work was wonderful, but not directly helpful in terms of the structure of the legal system, but the forensics were. So no, it's a battle. It is a cruel battle between good and evil. So it takes great bravery and an ability to sustain dealing with uncertainty over a very long period of time and tackling case by case and winning.
Yes, and thank you for your work. I want to read a section on page 141 in chapter 16 of your book. It says, in family court, the judge wields the power to destroy lives. And another part says, family court judges have the incomprehensibility, horrific ability to make entire families disappear, to take happy, thriving, loving children and turn them into something that is not only a shadow of themselves, but something unable to be reclaimed as per the damage inflicted. I call the judge who sends children to certain abuse, trauma, and destruction the family annihilator. And that rang so powerfully true when the judge got it wrong in our case. And luckily, we've gone through 3 or 4 judges by now. And, thank you for this book to validate and expose what's happening. And that's what this webinar is about. It's about raising awareness and a warning of the family court corruption. And we are, we can explore it and expose it more to say, what are the problems? What are the solutions? Because I think in your book, I underlined where sometimes the protective parent will sabotage their case. And that's where I think I can help, where you get so overwhelmed, you're so not supported, you don't have the right team, you don't have the right angle, you don't have a strategy, you're outnumbered, you're out-lawyered, your finances are not a match. On page 110 of your book, it says, sometimes parents self-sabotage, who indeed need to seek custody of vulnerable children facing the transfer of custody into the isolation of a well-documented abuser. And I tell you, the overwhelm, there was one point in my case, and I will admit this, that I said to my church group, I think I should just walk away because I'm being attacked. I'm losing my job at the school. I'm losing everything. He will abuse me, but maybe he won't abuse her if I just walk away. And one mom came up to me after and said, my ex was a narcissist. He was horribly abusive. I think she said sociopath or psychopath. I don't understand all those concepts because I'm not a psychologist, but she said to me, I left my 3 kids. I left my 3 kids with him and went away to just survive, thinking they'll be better off without me being in the war, I'll stay alive for them. And all 3 of her children committed suicide. And that was the moment I decided to keep fighting. And then other moms came up to me and said, I left and my child committed suicide. I left and the child is dead. I left. And so I was like, okay, I got to stay. I got to stay in this battle somehow, pace myself, find the experts, get a strategy, and stay here trying to protect my child. So I came up with all kinds of methods and all kinds of strategies. And I had to switch strategy because I wasn't working with a high-powered family law lawyer. I was working with lawyers. One was a good guy and he wasn't corrupt and he didn't take hardly any money from me at all. And we made it through 6 years of family court. But he only got me so far as losing my legal rights. And maintaining 50% physical. And the only reason I maintained 50% physical was I kept our child's therapist, a male who couldn't be charmed and manipulated by this narcissist, and I had done a lot of reviews and they all recommended him. He got on the stand. It was only able to speak 1 sentence before the other attorney. So, that's the thing. Our evidence may not even get submitted. If it gets submitted wrong, if it gets denied, like you might have all this evidence and it never makes it to the view of the judge. It gets objected to and taken out of the record and all kinds of things happen because we don't know law. Us moms who are, teachers or whatever, we don't have law degrees. We've never been in a courtroom to see cross-examination and how to object and we don't know. So that's why I tell moms, get a few legal consultations, use my list, and don't use your lawyer as a therapist, which gets very expensive. So find other resources for emotional support, because you will need emotional support going through this. So the therapist I kept for my daughter, he is also a GAL, and he was able to say one sentence: I think 50-50 is okay. And he told me he had to say that. This is between me, you, and whoever's listening. He knew the child did not belong with my ex-alcoholic narcissist who was neglecting and possibly abusing our daughter. But he said he had to say 50-50, or the judge will have to pick a side. And judges in our area want everything to be 50-50. They don't care if you can't co-parent with your abuser. They don't care if you can't coordinate and he won't communicate and it's all abuse that transfers in emails or on the co-parenting app. They don't care. They just want you to co-parent, even if it's impossible to co-parent with your ex or abuser. So that's how I was able to maintain 50% by that one sentence before he was taken off the stand with a legal maneuver. And I had to go and chip away at getting my rights back and restoring them, and had to find other ways to just survive. Like, how does my child just survive no medical care for the next, it was 3 years of like zero medical care? And I had to tiptoe around the narcissist. I couldn't speak about abuse. I couldn't speak about medical issues, because that was how they were trying to come after me. I had to hush up. And like you say in this book, I got silenced. I definitely got silenced, and I know to keep my mouth shut, because the louder I got, the more they came after me. And so I had to shut up in my case and slowly get my things back. But in the meantime, those were her vital years. It was like, 8 to 12. It was really painful for her, and she wanted to run away. And then she said she's going to commit suicide. And I said to her, and this is what I tell moms, they're like, what do I say to my kid? Hang on. I'm have hope. You're going to get older. The hope is they're going to outgrow this. They're going to get their rights restored, even if you've lost yours. And that I am in this with her. I'm not going to walk away. I'm not going to abandon her. I'm going to validate the truth and reality. And that helped her not run away, not commit suicide. And this is just for my kid's case. I don't know what's going to work for every child, and because every case is so different. I said, hang on, honey, I'm working on it. And that's when I started interviewing lawyers. I saw that some just wanted to file every motion possible, charge up 30 grand a year. I didn't have. And I had to sort through the lawyers who were part of the problem. They were not part of the solution. And I think your foundation is one of the solutions to this. Hopefully we can make some big changes in the family court through exposing judges who are corrupt and investigators who are corrupt and writing false reports just for the client who's got the most money.
Just
and I think
in support of what you were saying in terms of the sustainability, that the protective parent taking care of themselves on a minute by minute daily basis is extremely important. It is a very draining and exhausting and debilitating process. And having a core sensibility of the need to do this fight and the righteousness of it, but also taking care of yourself in the process of figuring out what gives you rest and sleep and renews your energy. You don't have to be happy and positive all the time. Just it's knowing that there are more years ahead of you. They will fight you till the kid is 18. 17 begins, they will begin to sort of back off. But knowing that that you absolutely have to take care of yourself and be very realistic about the battle ahead. But finding partners and support systems and the reality of how difficult it is, but also sustaining your child in terms of the understanding that this is horrendous, but there's more years ahead of you than behind you. That's one of the issues. And what the foundation is trying to do is making sure that these circumstances do not exist. that they are confronted, and that the corruption and the wrongfulness is understood. But unfortunately, we've been a bit of a lone voice. There have not been a lot of people who have been willing to confront the core hard issues of this, which is money and power. But you've done a wonderful job, an absolutely marvelous job of identifying real skills and means of getting through this.
Thank you. I mean, that's what my first book is about. It's about mothers. You got to stay sane through the insanity. And I just want to say, I did realize after watching a few of your other presentations that children of abusers will contact you, not just the protective mom, not just the protective dad. Like, how do I save and rescue my child from this hostage situation? Children will, and you welcome that. Is that true?
Yes, we do. Interestingly, we've gotten over the years a number of children who will contact me anonymously by phone, and be kind of navigating their own routes through things. And it's been very interesting because I have dealt with children anonymously over the phone and helped them navigate circumstances and situations. And that's been we have a private line, for people, and I don't ask questions. I just provide information and support, and it's actually worked out incredibly well. And even very young children, it's extremely interesting in terms of what happens. But young children, and I started out as a child analyst working with very, very young little children. They're very clear. You just have to understand what they're saying, what their language is, what their baby words are, which is why we teach them to use and correct anatomy and correct language, so that there's a clearer understanding and not baby language, because that could be confused. But there are techniques of just listening to children and understanding what they're saying, and they're very clear. They don't know how to lie. They have to learn how to lie, and that's extremely important. But listening and understanding and taking the time to get the information correct is terribly important.
I want to say, when I was reading your book, I had an aha moment, because if you're a mom, protective mom or dad, and you're in a corrupt family court system, one of the ways that you helped one of your clients was to go to a hospital or go to report something out of their whole district, so that the records can't be changed, falsified, redacted, modified. And that was an amazing awareness of, if you are in a situation where there's nonstop corruption, from the judge to the lawyers to the GALs to the children's attorneys to the DCF CPS workers, if it's just so bad, including pediatricians who get in on this, then you can bring the child somewhere else. But it has to be part of a consistent, cohesive strategy to get that documentation into another area. Can you speak just a little bit about that?
Yes, I am very familiar with hospital protocol, as my father owned Memorial Hospital of Queens when way back in the 1930s and 40s, when private hospitals were thriving. So he owned, and with his sisters and brothers, all who were physicians, Memorial Hospital of Queens. So I grew up in this hospital environment. Hospitals can protect children, and they can state that the person, somebody who's calling and wants to know if there's an inpatient, they can not provide that information. They can say, no, we don't have anybody here by that name, and thereby protect the child. When one of the ways of dealing with hospitals and organizations is to threaten to sue them. That if anything happens to this child, that they will be held accountable, that they've been informed of abuse and danger to the child. And if anything happens to this child, the hospital will be held accountable. The hospital can then turn the case over to Child Protective Services, but then you do the same with Child Protective Services in terms of holding them accountable. But their Child Protective Services tends to be much more difficult because they are, a level of government independence and power that is insuperable. But yes, one needs to take a stand and let them know that whatever authority is abandoning and depriving the child of protection, that they will be held accountable. That whatever happens and whatever they do in the moment, they will be held accountable. And the foundation does hold these organizations accountable. And we have a number of federal lawsuits and damages lawsuits that are moving forward. And the foundation is also, we have a certiorari before the Supreme Court right now against addressing the violations, civil rights violations of reunification therapy and the actions of organizations like Turning Points for Children and other so-called reunification programs are unconstitutional. They represent a form of involuntary commitment, and they're also not therapeutic. They're not medically approved, medically scientifically approved programs. So there are many areas of constitutional violations associated with these programs that must be challenged, but they have to be challenged on a scholarly, legal level, so that key components of the legal argument aren't left out that then causes the case to be lost. But we are fighting these cases before the Supreme Court, and we will be continuing to until we get every reunification program and every aspect of parental alienation discharged by the Constitution and inviolate in the state courts.
Thank you. Thank you for this work you're doing. And when a mom comes to me and they talk about going to court and trial and seeking justice and protection, I have to say, I don't believe, and I've not seen, that the family courts are in the business of child protection or prevention of abuse. And that's what a lot of moms say when the narcissist comes back around, when the kid's 4 or 5 and suddenly shows interest. I say the judges are not in child abuse prevention. They're not in that business. And you're going thinking they are. And that's a false expectation. So what they do when children are claiming abuse or there is abuse, they say therapy, family therapy, try to work with your abuser, family child therapy, try to be with your abuser and handle it. And I've coached moms who've had their children ordered into therapy with their abusive father, and it goes horribly hard and it is terrible. It's more trauma for the child. And then what do they say? Oh, add another therapist to the child. So the family courts are not in the business of child abuse prevention. I believe they need to be. Right now, they're not even in the business of child protection, even from the most horrific situations. That's why in your book, you talk about how if this wasn't a family member, they'd be criminally charged. But because we're in family court, it's treated very differently. It's not a safe place in my mind right now for children. I hope that as we raise awareness, we hold people accountable, we change the system. And one of my solutions is have everybody drug and alcohol tested right up front, because then you'll know who the liar is. If that would have happened in my case, and you, in the judge's theory and the principles are, we don't give children to someone who's under the influence of drugs and alcohol. We don't talk to them. We wait till they're sober for their case to come through, because you can't reason with the unreasonable. Or if everybody gets a psych eval, it's you don't try to work with an abnormal, disordered personality and expect to have orderly co-parenting from a disordered person. There's a lot that could be changed if we had principles and systems in place to stop these from becoming high conflict, ongoing cases that financially ruin the protective parent, that take children, put them with their abuser. There really needs to be some family court reform. Unfortunately, I'm not at that level. I'm so glad that you're trying to put a dent in it and maybe eliminate it. And I really, behind you, I'm supporting you emotionally. And thank you for the work that you're doing to expose these false PA, parental alienation ideas, these reunification camps that are just hell and horror for children. And I'm glad that children from these camps are speaking up that it was awful. And we're raising awareness and trying to blast this out of the system and create a better system. I work with a lot of moms who have their children have been killed, and they've created laws, and they're trying to pass them in certain states to then get them passed in other states. And it's just horrible. So my work, just to talk about a little bit of my work, is that when I was going through this, a mom who had 3 sons with a narcissist, she won the house in her family court trial and lost all 3 little boys, including the youngest, who was not growing. He was just not growing. I talked to her on the playground, and I wish I did more, because she shot herself in the head on Christmas Eve. And from that, you'll see in my first book, I said, oh my God, I've got to do something. Like, these boys lost the best mom. She was a teacher and worked with children with special needs. And she lost, all 3 of those boys lost a beautiful mom who was being psychologically abused and manipulated, trying to raise these 3 boys with her husband, and then tried to get away to save her sanity and self. And that was horrible. And also, I do this work because of my case. It's like, wait a minute, how can I lose my case with my ex who's an alcoholic? And why aren't the courts listening? Hey, he's an alcoholic. Well, it turns out I watched so many cases right before mine, because I'm in court so much. Like, there was no job that was going to give me that many days off. I was in court so much, I saw that if the alcoholic got a DUI, came back and filed and did a 30-day treatment program, they could get their kids right back. And it's like, there's so much relapse with the alcohol and drug addiction. How are we not planning for that? Because we were back in court, and it was actually a mom who was an alcoholic, putting the children in danger with a criminal pedophile boyfriend. And the father was fighting so hard, but he had no lawyer, and the judge wasn't listening. They just heard, oh, she's 30 days sober. And she got her kids back again and again and again. That the courts really failed these children, going for parents' rights and applauding her for being sober for 30 days, with the father's never touched a drink or a drug. It was very unfair. And
let me just tell you also that the alcohol programs are then funded by the courts. So it's a closed system that is turning. And before Gardner and his creative therapeutics marketing team became active in the 1980s, the courts were humane, and they were far from perfect, but this kind of corruption driven by money and the cash flow of funding programs that had good values and good concepts behind it were co-opted. The family courts were very decent, moral, humane organizations, subject to whatever human biases and whatever, but nothing as to the racketeering process that is going on today, since that has really developed and picked up speed since the 1980s. So when I began my work, in the courts in the late 1980s and beyond, I could see the transition from what the courts were at one point, when judges took off their robes and met with children and spoke to them in their chambers and drew with them and had lunch with them and we're parental figures and kind and interested to this grift and this racketeering fraud that's based on our taxpayer money from federal funds into the states. So one has to look at the cash flow and where the money is going. And that's where the financial forensics are. One other important point is that the children who are not destroyed emotionally, by mental illness, by just despair, by suicide, you have the other part of it, and it is you're growing a population of predators. So the predator model of the parents that they are being raised by, you're raising a new generation of very dangerous people. So you are seeing gun violence, racism, prejudice, just incredible rage in a population that was horrendously abused, and their role models are these psychopathic predators. So our society and the underpinnings of a democratic society are being entirely overrun and undermined by the catastrophe that is developed by either destroying the mental health of a part of the population and creating predators that are themselves child abusers and violent psychopathic characters themselves. And the judges, the generations of judges who have come into play are the predators that you're facing. So your predator is being supported by the authority on the bench. So just take a look at the people who are in charge of your cases, and take a look at them with fresh eyes.
Yes, it's horribly disappointing what the judges and professionals have done. I want to read page 194 of your book, Family Court Corruption. It says, however, carrying their own sickness, and I just want to say before I start, you liken it to cancer in the body, which is totally true. And I liken it to a virus in my first book too. So 194 of your book. However, carrying their own sickness, courts across the U.S. function with horrifying unanimity. Say that word for me. Unanimity.
Yes. One voice.
One voice of language and design, committed only to bellowing the big lie that any abuse claim does not exist, never existed, and is purely a fabrication of some false claim, some spiteful vendetta by the accuser. The toxic application of reunification therapy is then compelled by the courts as criminals conspire for mind control. And then you write in capitals, do not believe them. This is the same way cancer spreads through the body to cripple it and kill it. Instead, it must be eradicated. So thank you for this book and your work. I want to get into what I offer in terms of my books. But first of all, just thank you for being here. At the end of this presentation, I'll attach a video for your foundation so the watchers can see more of the facts of these situations and where there is some help and some hope. Is there anything that you want to say in closing? We'll probably do more videos just on the false parental alienation claims, or just on the horrible reunification therapy that is just criminal, unjust, and horrific. Is there anything that you want to say in terms of this basic overview of family court failures?
Just that truth and personal strength and conviction are really what is required to combat this. And one just knows that what they're doing is right and correct, and you try to work with people who are caring and supportive and on the same page, and that you have a conviction in the sense that what you're doing is right, and you aren't dissuaded from it, and you take care of yourself. You love life and are careful with your health and your medical conditions, and find areas of joy and protecting yourself, and gaining strength every day, and treasure each day as it comes, and just understand that it's difficult, but it's also rewarding and important. So
Yes, thank you so much for being
it's
here.
a battle that is won.
Thank you so much for giving us hope and winning those battles at the higher levels, when we're down here in the pit, down in the trenches.
In the trenches is where it has to be, and you do wonderful work, absolutely wonderful. You're inspiring and supportive and a wonderful role model.
Thank you. I think I'm just sharing my survivor wisdom, and here are my books. If you're co-parenting with a narcissist, an abuser, a psychopath, a sociopath, whatever their disorder is, my first book is Co-Parenting with a Narcissist, 7 Self-Rules to Stay Sane. My second is How to Fight a Narcissist in Family Court and Win, Super Smart Strategies for Success. And I'll just say, I'm not a fighter. I'm an empath. I didn't know how to fight. I couldn't fight. I had to rise to this occasion. And like a lot of wars throughout history had to be fought to stop the horrors. And I was a peace-loving person, and I still believe in peace and having peace. But I found out that sometimes you can only get peace on the other side of war. My third book is Co-Parenting with a Sociopath, Survival and Sanity Guide. And then my newest book is How to Survive a Custody Battle with a Narcissist when the family courts force you to co-parent. And I could add, with your abuser, with a narcissist, with someone who's personality disordered, psychopath, illogical, irrational, abnormal. So there is a Get the Right Lawyer guide. I have free blogs on my website of, you just browse the blogs of co-parenting with a narcissist and learn, because education is key. Knowledge is power. I have a video program when dealing with a narcissist. You need to navigate not just the narcissist or the abuser, you need to navigate the family court system, which you can tell is corrupt and inept, and some people say broken, not able to detect who the high conflict parent is, not able to protect children, not in the business of preventing abuse and neglect of children. Then you need to navigate your fears, because this is scary, and we are not natural fighters. Where a narcissist, an abuser, a bully is a natural fighter. So we're out of our element. I talk about how the narcissist has these tricks, these tactics, these traps, and more manipulations to put into a family court battle. And we need to have strategies, skills, self-rules. We have the ability to learn. So learn from what you're going through and get the support, not just emotional support. Now, instead of saying, moms in this, get support, I say now get emotional support and get strategy support. Get a strategy partner, because that's where it is. The Get the Right Lawyer guide is $10 on my website. If you can't afford that, please message me. I give out these things for free if you can't afford them. I do have a legal strategies that I use in family court. These are the 20 that I had to go through just to give you ideas, but not actual things that you could take and run with. You would need a lawyer to develop a strategy, or someone like Jill and her foundation to develop a strategy. This is just my story. And I have how to communicate so that you're not yelling back and then getting it used against you, and how to use skillful means, which is a way for peace. I have key phrases you can use to neutralize the hostility and to de-escalate. Now, my stuff doesn't apply to every case. If there's serious sexual abuse, some of this stuff won't apply at all. You just really need to get the kid to safety and try to work with someone like Jill with a strategy for that. But here's 25 key phrases if you're just dealing with a narcissist in a high conflict custody battle that can stop them from getting their ego so bruised and them doing their retaliation methods. The link to my video program, which is 11 videos, is below. It's the basics. You can learn through this. You can heal through this. You can grow through this. You can help others through this. And I always say you can come out smarter and stronger than before. Yes, you might come out abused. We can get therapy as adults for the abuse and understand that it wasn't personal, that this is just abusers abuse. That's what they do. And they see how much sociopaths, they see how much they can get away with. They love duping people. That's that sociopathic duping delight. And that it's really their issues. I do have a Moms in Custody Battles Facebook group. I think we're at 6,000 now. I'm sad to see more and more members every day, thousands per month, because that just means there's so many of us out there. And I say, learn all you can. I'm trying to give you these resources to empower you, to give you hope. All the books I have are on Amazon. You can like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Whether you're watching it on my channel or Jill's channel, come to my website to learn more, to see what I do for coaching. It's very limited coaching because I hear the worst cases. I'm sure Jill does too. And I really can't do that full time because I need to have some other things in my life besides the most horrible crimes going on across this country in family courts. But Jill now has a YouTube channel, which will be great for her to talk about what she does and talk about the solutions. And if you stay a little bit longer, the video will be attached to this that gives an overview of the critical situations that we're facing in family court with children in desperate need of rescuing, and desperate need of being with the protective parent away from their abuser. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Jill, for being with us as an expert. And just want to say thank you and give you one more chance to speak.
Thank you so much for your work, the power of an idea and a commitment to the right form of living, and protecting children is all important as far as I'm concerned. And I think your work is magnificent, absolutely magnificent. So I'm grateful to the expansiveness of your work and your energy and how productive you've been.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you in the next video. If you've watched this and this resonates with you, you identify with things, this sounds like hope and support for you, look for future videos of me and Jill talking about the other problems that are very specific in family court that need to be corrected so that protective parents can go in and actually win some custody cases, and children can win some salvation, some victories, some protection in family courts. Thank you so much for watching.